can bet I've been sitting pretty good, high on a hill, looking at a field downwind. If I can make a nickel off of turning in gas, never worry about the price of gas. I've been wheeling and dealing and sitting there reeling them in.
Yeah, next episode, shirtless.
Hunting, fishing, loving every day. That's the prayer that a country boy prays. Thank God he made me this way. Hunting, fishing, loving every day. Early in the morning, late in the evening, I'm getting red dirt rich and Flint River paid. Hunting, fishing, loving every day.
There you go. You're listening to The Mix Radio Network. This is The Grind from Field to Freezer with Seth. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little tired. Spent a couple of days up on the big pond, and obviously with everything going on in Minneapolis, I've had some schedule changes in my life.
Yeah.
So
minute by minute.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. And honestly, it's been second by second, and it's been difficult. The lack of direction from up top, meaning the leader of the state down to Department of Public Safety Commissioner, kind of put a lot of us in flux. We were kind of scrambling and just trying to figure out what to do. So a lot of what we were doing was just like hurry up and wait. Type shit.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Well, and I don't think anybody works well under that kind of condition.
Well, because there's no direction.
Right.
It's been basically like bees swarming around. It's just like, where do you go? With no hive.
Right.
So it was kind of difficult for a while, but we've got past that. I think hopefully, God willing, Minnesota's on the downswing.
In theory,
Hopefully we are. I think there are a lot of serious conversations going on right now that I'd like to weigh in on. The defunding of police and the whole movement, anti-police. Look, I want to say first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to my brothers and sisters in blue. You guys do a thankless job for shit pay. And I love every single one of you. There are opportunities to make change, and everybody keeps throwing out this phrase, systemic racism. Well, the police are only one part of the criminal justice system. They are the first line. And so they are obviously the lightning rod. So if you want to have a systemic change, you can start with the police, as you should. But you also need to move beyond that. You need to move to judges, sentencing guidelines, sentencing reform, probation reform, parole reform. You need to move into education. I'm a firm believer in education, where if you can throw as much money as you do into other programs into education, then you can prevent any person who would be apt for criminal activity. You could prevent them from going down that road through education. So we can have policies set in place to prevent people from coming in contact with police. I.e., if we got a bunch of money together for, back in Minnesota in like the 50s and 60s, maybe even to the 70s, vocational education at like Dunwoody, Northern Hennepin, Anoka, all that stuff was free. You just had to raise your hand, sign up, go, do your coursework, do the work, show up, graduate, and you got a free degree, a 2-year degree, a vocational degree. So that went away when the proliferation of we're going to make money on student loans kind of reared its ugly head. I think if Minnesota brought that back and we educated a bunch of people, and it would probably take a generation, 25, 30 years, but if we educated people and gave them an avenue to have a successful route in life other than criminal activity, contacts with police would drop drastically. So I think the police are the lightning rod because of the first line of defense, and they're always wrong. Whether they do it right or wrong, they're wrong. You can't get in front of even a well-educated professor and have a simple argument about police activity, because the use of force is under fire, the de-escalation, all this is, but there's science behind it, which I'm a scientist, so I tend to go with science. There's a lot of science behind lethal force, the application of it. So I encourage anybody to go to the Force Science Institute website and just kind of read up a little bit if you want to be educated. But if you just want to sit there and spout off like you know what you're talking about, then go ahead. I'm not going to engage that, because I'll listen to anybody, but I like to go with science first. But meanwhile, back to my point, and this is the last thing I'm going to say. I think as a society, we need to put an emphasis on education, educating lower class individuals. I don't care what your race is, just educating you to getting a job, and therefore criminal activity will not be afoot. That's where I stand on it, and I stand with the cops on it. So, I'm in a bad spot. I'm in a terrible spot, thankless spot, but that's where I stand. I stand with education and cops.
In my in my experience, nobody that has ever followed directions has ever gotten their asses in trouble when being detained.
So, the NCJIS, it's a National Criminal Justice Institute of Science. Their latest statistics are from 2018, and they're of all the individuals that were killed by law enforcement last year, there are 9 unarmed people killed. 9, not even 10, 9 people killed by law enforcement in 2018. And if it shows that all 9 of those were a felonious act by the cops, then send them to jail. I don't think any cop is against that. There are bad apples, but for 9, a single digit number in an entire year that were killed by law enforcement officers, and they're unarmed. There could have been other things at play. We don't know that. I haven't looked at all the 9 cases, but there are 9. And I think that we need to take a step back and look at, I see a lot of rhetoric about the extermination of black people, the extermination of minorities. And I understand that it's an emotional response, and everything's emotional right now. From the cop side, from the minority side, everything's emotional. But I think we need to take a step back and actually examine the data, the science, and look at it and say, okay, well, 9 people were killed in 2018 that were unarmed by police, and they deserve justice. Every single one of them. Nobody's denying that. I'm not denying that. You need to look at the relativity of your argument. If you're saying there's an extermination, then have data. We don't have that right now. It's simply untrue. And I'm not going Trump on it and saying fake news is a hoax, because there is police brutality. There certainly is. But I think the way to fix that, because a lot of the individuals that have contact with police are lower socioeconomic status individuals that are from low income areas. But the way to fix that contact with police is to educate and provide, if we have to provide metro mobility for mothers and fathers to go to school and free daycare for their kids while they go and learn a trade or a craft, then let's do that. Because that's way cheaper than what we're dealing with now. And it's way less explosive. And guess what? We're helping people. So if you want to increase, for all the Republican listeners, if you want to increase your tax base.
There might be a few.
Yeah, no, but if you want to increase your tax base, then educate people and give them a job where they're actually paying taxes.
Sure.
So let's do that. And it's going to take a generation, and it's going to suck. We're going to have to take it on the chin as a taxpayer for the time being. But if we can do that, we can lower police contact, and we'll actually gain tax revenue over a generation versus losing it and just pumping it out to Section 8, WIC, SNAP, EBT, SSI. Like, we're basically hemorrhaging cash on that when a fix to that isn't, oh, we're going to drug test people. Okay, fine. Yeah, I get that. But, and the argument is fairly valid if it would ever even get along. But I say educate them. Give them a trade, give them a craft, and guess what? They're going to get a job, and then they're going to be paying taxes. So to me, that's the fix. But I'm an idiot who doesn't know anything. I like to hunt and fish. That's just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. I love everybody, and obviously I'm a cop, so I like cops a lot more.
Well, I think you're onto something, and the reason being is because I will go back to I get lots of different agency contacts, right? I deal with lots of different people, and I will tell you that the Southwest Metro Drug Task Force Commander, Jason Ayers, who is a very good friend of mine, he actually married one of my high school friends. He mirrors what you say is that we have these children, and we have them for 8 hours every day, other than with COVID, But we need to infiltrate the education system.
Yeah.
And if we do that, we come out on the other side of the barrel.
You do, but the other side of the barrel is probably 20 years.
Yeah.
That's what sucks.
But
it's not an immediate fix. And that's why I disagree with like defunding police and all that. I'd say reinventing in a way is helpful immediately, but defunding or disbanding is a non-starter for me. I think we need to play the long game. I think we need to be smart about it, less emotional, more scientific. And emotions are so high in the country, let alone Minneapolis, that to have a rational conversation about long-term change is very difficult right now. It's extremely difficult. And I think people with cooler heads that are prevailing, that are trying to have that conversation, are basically getting canceled out. And it's very frustrating because there are a lot of really good ideas that could come forward right now, but nobody in the public that's really screaming hardline rhetoric right now wants to hear from police or union officials or anything like that. So it's difficult to even have a conversation right now, if that makes sense.
And it's a horrible situation that happened on Memorial Day, and it's bad for a multitude of reasons.
Right.
I'm not casting blame. I think, quite honestly, everybody's a victim in that.
Oh, certainly. And like I've told my wife before, like when we first started dating, I was like, look, if I have to smoke somebody, we're moving. Like we're moving. You are changing your last name, and you know what? Like, because when Jamar Clark was killed and Schwarzy, it was just a nightmare for him and his family, and I don't want that for my family. So there needs to be equitable conversations from both sides, and I don't think that we're there yet. We can get there, but tensions are just way too high right now.
Well, it wasn't. We're gonna get into hunting and fishing, but we're on to something here, and of course I'm gonna throw a shameless plug out for Stacy and Tracy too. We'll talk more about it on Queen of the Cop on Tuesday night 7 to 9. And but I mean, is it helpful that we have the administration and the powers to be out of Minneapolis withdrawing from any kind of negotiation? I mean, I think it's the wrong time, or is it really that big of a deal? I mean,
like you meant, like the Atlanta chief of police resigned.
Yeah.
It's a cancel culture, and I think that it's a good time to take a step back and let just everybody relax. So pulling back from negotiations isn't necessarily like, hey, we're not willing to have this conversation. It's them saying, we don't want to have it now because you don't want to hear what we have to say. Because whatever we say, you're just going to cancel me out on.
Right.
So I think that tactic, history will tell if it's helpful or not. But if I was like Arredondo or the DPS commissioner, I would certainly hold pat. I wouldn't go to a table right now because you're just going to get screamed down and you're going to have to concede things that you wouldn't normally concede if cooler heads prevailed. So I think tensions are just way too high for these conversations, and everybody wants conversations. I'm happy to have them. I just don't want it to become who can shout louder than the other, and then as soon as you misspeak or misstep, then boom, they cancel you out and you're done. So I think there's a lot of good information out there. We need to rely on the scientists, and I think we need to move forward, but I think we need to put a little less emotion in what's happening with these conversations. But it's hard because it's a very emotional deal.
Yeah.
Like, a guy was killed by a cop. Well, let's just wait till due process runs itself out. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of good information out there. I'm not willing to stick a needle in a guy's arm until he has a fair trial and all the information's out there. But there's a lot of people that are willing to burn a business down. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with peaceful protest. You have every right to, and I want to hear that. But I can't hear it when I'm or read it when the smoke flames are in your eye, or you can't breathe because of the smoke, or you're worried about your car parked on the side of the road. So yes, it brings attention, and I understand that those violent protests bring attention, national attention. And there's a lot of information out there about, you need to create violence to get your word out or get people to listen. And yeah, maybe and history will show if this worked or not. But the last time I checked, burning down a post office really doesn't do a whole lot for you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's do that. Hey, let's talk. Let's get to some hunting and fishing and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, tell us about your weekend. How was it? What'd you do?
So, my old man called me up about a week ago, and he's like, "We got to get to Mille Lacs. It's been on fire lately. We were there on opener, but I really wanted to get back with nicer weather, and so we went Thursday to Saturday midday." And on Thursday, we got on the water around noon, 12:30, got off around 9:30. Then Friday, we fished from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., where you have to be off the lake. Then Sunday, we fished Sunday morning till about 11 o'clock. We boated north of 100 walleyes. You can't keep any fish up there right now. There's a ban. And then come July 1st, it's a complete ban on the lake. You can't even be on the lake with fishing gear. Not even for like muskies or smallmouth or crappies. You just can't be on the lake with fishing gear, which is wild to me. So there's like, and I want to address this, and I don't know if I ever have on the show before, but the Native American bands and their gill netting with the fish and the way that the sportsmen and the DNR react to it, I think is a colossal failure. I think that lake has such potential, but it went down to a Supreme Court decision, and everybody's kind of just dug in, and the DNR is now managing the sportsmen over. Because they have no rule or authority over how the bands, other than like total poundage. But so, for example, the reason where I'm going with this is right now it's catch and release only. You can't keep any fish. So we caught north of 100 walleyes, and I'll bet you the hook mortality was probably around 40%. So here's me, who I love fishing and I love fish and I love to eat walleye. Here's me catching all these walleyes, and I know when I put this fish back, it's gonna die. So it's almost like a wanton waste law. There's a wanton waste law. You can't shoot an animal or injure an animal and not try and attempt to retrieve it. But currently, as the state of affairs on Mille Lacs, the DNR says you have to do that. So I'm pulling these fish up from 28 feet of water, knowing that they're probably going to be dead after I pull the hook out and put them back. And it's just like, and I can't keep them. And I know me and my wife would eat them.
And your stomach's growling.
And I'm pissed.
Right.
I feel bad as a sportsman.
Sure.
Like, I don't want to. So after like a certain, like on the middle of the day on Friday, I'm just like, I'm kind of feeling bad catching these fish. Because I know 40% of them are probably going to die.
Sure.
And I don't like that. I don't agree with it. So I think if the DNR you know, put their back up and said, look, you guys can keep 3 fish, right? So me and my dad, we'd have 6 fish. Guess what? We'd be done fishing. We'd go in and have some beers and a pizza or a burger or whatever. But instead, we stayed out there and just caught fish. And guess what we did? We killed more fish than had we just kept our 3 apiece, and that would have been it. I don't know. I'm an idiot though. So
No, you know what?
Yeah.
We're all idiots
yeah.
unless you're making laws. And you're
That's
the smart
right.
ones.
that's right.
So you went out to Lake Mille Lacs. They were hitting pretty hard.
Yeah.
Did you have any fun?
I had a blast. I actually posted to the Grind Facebook page the exact method I was using. I don't pretend to I don't want to keep secrets from anybody. We were pulling long lines, which is basically a snell. It's like a 10-foot fluorocarbon leader, slow death hook, which is like a number 6 Gamakatsu that has like a bend in it. We were pulling leeches in anywhere between 16 and 22 feet of water at about from 0.5 to 1.5 miles an hour on the west side of the flats, and we were crushing them. So if you want to get up there, you have a couple of weeks to do it. Try that method, see if it works. We did catch some big fish, but if you want to target larger fish, get out to the mud flats and go deep. Stay off the top, get onto the basin, stay deep in around 20 to 32 feet of water. You'll pick up your 24 to 26 to hopefully a trophy fish on that lake.
Really?
Yeah.
There it is. No secrets amongst friends.
None.
That's what you do.
We love all you guys.
That's right. So, all right. Well, you know what? We have about, it looks like we're going to have Ben coming on right about now. I'm hoping he's going to call, or we calling him, he calling, he's calling us,
I
right?
give him the number.
Okay.
Hopefully he calls in so we can kind of just
Here we go.
spin it around and we'll see.
Look at that. Right on
There
time.
it is.
Is this Ben?
This is Ben.
Hey, Ben, how are you?
Good.
Good. Welcome to the grind. You're on, and obviously, you know Seth, so I'm going to let you guys get at it.
Hey Ben, it's
Sure.
Seth.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for calling in, Ben. I know you're out in Wisconsin. We didn't want to make you drive all the way over here for a quick show. We had a chance to talk earlier, but I want to give some of our listeners a little bit of background. I follow Ben on Instagram along with a lot of other people. Dr. Duck, Sitka, Vortex, Koyu. I follow a lot of the people that I feel like mirror the style of hunting and fishing, public land. They're in it for the sport, not just the kill. And Ben, I've been following him for a while, and I reached out to him a couple weeks ago to see if he would come on the show. He's a Wisconsin guy who's into fly fishing, spinning reel fishing. He's into a lot of river fishing with muskies and trout as well. And that's what I do when it comes to like salmon fishing. I'm not gonna lie. I hire a charter out of Wisconsin to go into Lake Michigan, and I go catch kings. I don't do it all on my own, so I don't pretend to know that. But I wanted to give some of the listeners maybe a sneak peek on a guy who does it like on a daily, weekly basis for the love of the game, and the chase and the hunt and the challenge of it all. And I think Ben is a really good representation of that. And so I was very fortunate that he agreed to come on the show. So I'm just going to ask Ben a couple of quick questions just to get him going. But Ben, who got you into fishing to begin with?
Well, it all started with my dad. I grew up in La Crosse, Wisconsin, right on the Mississippi River. And it's just like anywhere in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest especially, you're going to be surrounded by water. And growing up, I couldn't have asked for a better area to grow up than La Crosse, right on the Mississippi River. And my dad has, grew up right on the Mississippi River, and he got me into fishing. Younger, you just go out, catch some panfish, and it just kind of escalated from there.
Yeah. Is that why you're kind of a river rat now with like your musky fishing too? You kind of stick to rivers? because you grew up in that area right next to the Mississippi, or is that just what you prefer, or the style of fishing you like on the rivers versus the lake?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean, around me, within about an hour of where I live, the only muskie opportunities that you're really going to have, or really fishing opportunities at all, are pretty much going to be rivers. But I did live in Stevens Point for a couple of years, and that's kind of where I got into more lake fishing, especially on the Great Lakes. I love fishing in Lake Superior, on Lake Michigan, in that area, and smaller lakes as well. But river fishing, you know, growing up on a river, it holds a special place in my heart, and it's a different style of fishing than lake fishing. I would say you're more able to you know, envision what the landscape that you're fishing is. It's a little bit more hands-on than a lake where you're kind of looking at sonar more than you're looking at the structure itself.
So let me ask you, like, a guy who's typically like a walleye fisherman or a pan fisherman who has like Navionics or a Lowrance and just some spinning reels, is it, because I know a lot of guys that are pretty much lake fishermen only, and there's a ton of rivers in Minnesota, particularly, you know, obviously out east towards the Wisconsin border, and I feel like rivers are intimidating for a lot of lake fishermen. What would you suggest? Are there any gear or electronics or anything that would be different that would prevent somebody from trying it? Or do you think it's just a mental bridge that guys just really don't want to cross?
It depends on the size of the river. A lot of the streams that I'm fishing for trout in particular, those I'm wearing waders. And honestly, that's the only difference between the only different kind of gear that you would need if you wanted to go catch trout with a spinning reel, spinning rod, spinning gear. The only difference, I would, you know, walk a stream, because most of these streams are too shallow to run a boat in, whereas, you know, some of the larger rivers, it's basically just going from a lake to a river. You can use the same gear. It's just being able to read the water a little bit differently than on a lake.
No, that's a great point, and thanks for bringing that up. Can I ask you, when you say you're fishing streams, is there like a place that you go to find information? For example, on the Minnesota DNR website, we have they have like a GIS, which is a global information system, where you can like blow up a map and it'll show you what the river has and it'll show you what species are prevalent. Is there something that you use to kind of dial in to your trout streams via social media, government service web pages, word of mouth? How do you find or identify a stream that would hold trout?
Yeah, well, there's a couple different ways that I go about that. For me, mainly fishing in Wisconsin and Minnesota and then Iowa as well. The government agencies for all those states provide really, really good interactive maps, online interactive maps. For example, in Wisconsin, the DNR actually provides an application called the Trout application. It's an acronym, TROUT. And that application is essentially an interactive GIS map. And it's that kind of, you know, that can kind of sound kind of scary to somebody that, you know, isn't familiar with that kind of mapping technology.
Yeah.
But all it is, you just pull up on your phone and it's color-coded streams. And you can click on a stream, see where the public land is, see what kind of stream it is. And the same thing with Minnesota. You can go on Minnesota's DNR website, look at trout stream maps, just punch that in, and it'll show up by county, and you can see exactly where all these streams are, the public land around there. And yeah, I tell you what, if you're just getting started trout fishing, public land, finding a good public spot is perfect. because then you don't have to even worry about getting in the water if you don't have waders. You can just walk along the bank and you know, you're into fish right away.
So when you want to talk about like trout fishing, and let's just say I've never been trout fishing, and I wanted to go, let's just say next weekend, would you recommend pulling up one of these maps, or like trying to go to a Facebook page or something, trying to get information? And if so, like how much gear am I looking at from a walleye fisherman to a trout fisherman? Like, am I downsizing my monofilament to like a 4-pound? Am I looking at like different style of flies? Can I buy them locally, or you know, do you make your own? I'm trying to get information out to people that might want to try it, because look, with everything with COVID right now, the best thing to do is to get outside. And if you want to grab a rod and some 4-pound test and try and catch a trout, what would you recommend to like a first timer who literally has never done it before? How would they go about getting out into the stream, finding a Facebook page? I know you mentioned the Wisconsin DNR, the Minnesota DNR, that trout map, but like, tell me exactly what monofilament, pound test, and what you would be pitching and where you'd be pitching. Would you be moving it in moving water? Would you try and find a bend? Would you be looking for like a deeper sinkhole? Like, can you run me through that real quick?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. So with trout fishing, you're really going to be looking at, there's two kind of paths that you can take. You can either use your spinning gear, or you can go down the fly fishing road. And with conventional or spinning tackle, the route to get there it's going to be a lot easier. Not saying that fly fishing, it's not an intimidating thing. But if you're a walleye guy, I'll just kind of run through what I use. It's nothing special. Around here, all I use is I use a 6'6" medium rod, medium action rod, and then I just use a regular. I actually use the same gear for walleye fishing occasionally. And the kind of line that I like is I actually use braided line, because when you're fishing streams, you're going to be in contact with a lot of snags, a lot of trees, and so braided line gives you the advantage of a little bit less abrasion than you find with your monofilament line. If you like mono, I know some people just don't like to run braided, which is fine. I have a lot of friends that run mono. 6-pound mono works perfectly. A lot of people, will ask me, with my conventional gear, when I fish on the Great Lakes, I'll run actually a fluorocarbon leader, which is a different kind of line that's almost invisible in the water. Yeah. And I don't run that around the driftless region or the La Crosse area, because these streams are a lot siltier. You don't have the water clarity, especially in rivers and streams, that you do in big lakes. And when you're running a conventional bait like a spinner or a crankbait, you're going more for you're not trying to match the hatch, as they'd say. You're going for more of a reaction strike, mm-hmm. where that fish just sees it and it hits it.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to worry so much about your presentation. I personally, all the experienced trout fishermen I fish with, they all run braid. In my opinion, it's the way to go. For me, just when you make sure, if you've never used braid before, make sure you put a little bit of monofilament line on your reel right away, and then tie your braid onto that. That's called a backing, so that it prevents the braided line from slipping off your reel.
Yeah.
And that works perfectly for me. And so that's what I run for my conventional baits.
What terminal?
Fly fishing.
Sorry to interrupt, Ben. What terminal tackle are you tossing with your braid? And I want to touch on that braid point that you made. You're mainly fishing moving water, so the clarity is already, like if a Secchi disc would be dropped down, you're not really going to see a whole lot of clarity. Like Mille Lacs right now is super clear because of the zebra mussels are kind of filtering the water. So a lot of fishermen are running monofilament on Mille Lacs because the clarity is so clear, but in a river, you don't necessarily have to worry about that. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. But what type of terminal, meaning what type of fly, or are you running a MEPS, or what are you doing to attract the trout, and where specifically on the river are you trying to attack them? Meaning, is it on a bend, or is it in like a pool, or what are you focusing on right now? Like water temperature, clarity, what are you doing with that?
Sure, yeah. So the most important thing to understand about if you're just going out trout fishing is understanding the biology of the trout itself, the behavior and the way that it feeds. So what a trout does is the streams especially are relatively fast moving water. So what it essentially is just a funnel for food, because a lot of the food that they're going after is just being pushed along by this water. So a trout where you're gonna find trout is in these breaks between the fast moving water and maybe a bigger rock or a snag, and these trout will just sit there and ambush something coming past it. So that is when I say read the water, being able to read a stream, that's being able to see these breaks and see where the trout are going to be. And you know, if you're just getting out starting trout fishing, it doesn't take too long to get the hang of how to read a stream. And
Kind of like a walleye fisherman reading a flat,
a crankbait or a MEPS. If you're just starting out trout fishing, I promise you can get away with using two baits: a number 6 Panther Martin and a number 8 Husky Jerk, or a smaller Countdown or Pala as well. And a Husky Jerk and a Countdown are both Rapala baits. They're a little bit larger, but number 6 Panther Martin spinner, greatest trout lure of all time. I'll argue anyone on that.
Yeah.
I can throw that year round and you'll catch fish.
Well, do our listeners a favor and shoot us kind of like screenshots of those baits that you recommend, kind of just the staples for a tackle box for somebody that might want to go out, and we'll share them with the page and we'll tag you on it and throw your Instagram up there, if you don't mind. That'd be helpful to a lot of our viewers. The last thing I kind of want to discuss with you, we have about 5 more minutes. You're a big muskie guy, and I think that the river muskies, the clear muskies, are kind of an art form that a lot of people are missing out on because they're such an elegant fish, and they're a hyper sportsman style. They're kind of like the marlin of the freshwater. They're super aggressive. They're really good fighters. Very majestic. And if you want to talk a little bit about your muskie fishing tactics on the river, I'd appreciate that, and I think a lot of the listeners would. Versus just getting on, your Ranger 620, going out to Mille Lacs and pitching lumber, in October. How do you target your muskies, and why and where?
Yeah, absolutely. The cool thing about river muskies is, in comparison to lake muskies, I started out fishing muskies on lakes, and it turns out I didn't even know when I was younger that there's a great muskie spot 20 minutes from my house, and we were driving 3 hours up to northern Wisconsin. And the cool thing about river muskies is that river muskies are a lot more opportunistic than your lake muskies. So the rate at which they feed is going to be a lot higher than with a lake muskie. So when you're running a river full of muskies, depending on the size of the river, I fish everything from smaller rivers like the Black River in Wisconsin to bigger rivers like the Wisconsin River, where these fish will hit. It's almost like a trout. If it sees something, it's going to hit it. It's not that easy, but at the same time, what I'm running for these muskies and rivers is smaller muskies. muskie baits in comparison to, you know, if you're fishing a big lake, you might be running big double bucktails, big bulldogs, 1 pound bulldogs. Where on a river, a lot of what I throw is topwater baits, like a lot of different topwater baits, or smaller crankbaits. Livingston makes really great smaller muskie style crankbaits that look great in rivers, where the easiest bait to throw for a muskie on a river is a crankbait. You can throw them almost anywhere, and you'll run into a lot fewer snags than you would with, say, a bigger bucktail or a big bulldog.
So
And
is it-
yeah,
yeah, so
you know,
is it-
you're trying to get into river muskie fishing, crankbaits and topwater.
Great. I hope you can share some of those Livingston baits. They sound like a local company. We like to support local businesses. Is it fair for me to say that river muskie fishing is different from lake muskie fishing in the sense that you're throwing a smaller presentation, and you may not go 100 casts for a follow. You might be just looking for opportunistic, like reactionary strikes from these muskies in areas that they would tend to be on the river. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. You know, it's a different game. In, you know, a couple words, the best way I can describe it is on a lake, you're fishing a lot longer for bigger fish, where on a river, you might catch a lot more fish, but you might not see the same size that you're going to see on the, you know, the giants like Lake of the Woods and Mille Lacs, like you were talking about. But you're definitely going to have a higher chance of running into a muskie.
Do you ever
Which
throw
is cool for any
do you ever
fisherman.
throw flies for muskies, or are you strictly kind of like a jointed bait, crankbait style fishing on your spinning rod?
Occasionally I have tried it before. It's tough, and I have a lot of buddies that do throw flies for muskies, and all of them I know fish rivers. It's a lot easier to get close contact with these fish, which is what you need with a fly, and it's tough. But if you're looking for a challenge and you're looking for, you know, it's the trophy of a lifetime. Catching a muskie on the fly is absolutely, you know, a goal of mine, but something that I need to put a lot more time into because it's tough, but it's doable, and especially in river systems.
But it's fun to chase them around and see what works and what doesn't work, and you learn along the way. Ben, I really want to thank you for calling in. We're going to post your Instagram to our webpage, and if you don't mind, send me those baits that you had mentioned. We'll get them put up with a link to you as well. Keep up the good work. You're a true sportsman, and I know that you are active in the Wisconsin trout community. So keep up the good work, and if you want to plug any of those groups for some possible donations, we're happy to do it. You guys, even though you're Packer fans, we'll maybe flip you some money, but we love you over there in Wisconsin. And Ben, keep up the good work. You're doing a really good job, and thanks for calling in. And hopefully we can talk again, maybe either later this summer or early in the fall when fishing kind of picks up, when people stop thinking about fishing and pick up the guns and get their dogs ready. But thanks again, Ben, and we appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right,
All right,
thanks,
have a good
Ben.
one, Ben. All right,
Yeah,
there
you
you
too.
go.
Thank you.
There you go. So fantastic conversation. It flew over my head because I'm not a fisherman. So
Well, no, and look, and I've been hounding my brother for like a month to come in here because he knows a lot more about this. But so I essentially reached out to some people that I follow on Instagram, and Ben is one of them. I don't know. I know a lot. I don't know everything. So I want our viewers, listeners, to get it from an expert's, from the horse's mouth. Because A, I don't want to lead them astray, and B, I would just be talking out of my ass. So I'm very grateful that Ben called in. He knows what he's talking about. If you guys, when we post his link to the page, if you have any questions, he is such a nice guy. I guarantee you, if you had a specific question for him, he would respond. He's a very responsive guy. He's very knowledgeable, and he'll also tell you he doesn't know. And that's the reason why I'm telling some of our listeners, I don't know that much about river fishing. That's why we just had Ben on. So there's humility in saying I don't know. And that's why we had Ben on, and I hope that some of the viewers that were maybe interested in it or not interested in it at least learned something from our conversation with Ben.
Go to the Grind Facebook page, The Grind, Field to Freezer, and some of that stuff I think Jana is working on right now, linking up. So there you go, and like you said, shoot him off a question if you have one, and he'll probably get back to you. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break because we got to play Mitch Gordon Beer Joint. But before that, you know what? We played this on Queen and the Cop, and you touched on something in your intro, your monologue that hit me, and I thought, you know what? There's no better time to play this than right now. So give it a listen. It's a good one. It's Paul Harvey called Policeman.
Policeman.
I love
A
this.
policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. What that really means is that they are exceptional, they are unusual, they are not commonplace. Buried under the froth is the fact. And the fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen misfit that uniform. And that is a better average than you'd find among clergymen. What is a policeman? He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted, a strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and pig or worse behind his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each will think he won, but if a policeman is neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's a flirt. If he's not, he's a grouch. He must make instant decisions which would require months for a lawyer, but if he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be first to an accident, infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, be sure the victim goes home without a limp. The police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip two men twice his size and half his age without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. If you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a bully. The policeman from a single human hair must be able to describe the crime, the weapon, the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding. But if he catches the criminal, he's lucky. If he doesn't, he's a dunce. He runs files and writes reports until his eyes ache to build a case against some felon who'll get dealed out by a shameless Seamus. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman. And of course he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary.
Chance in hell, you find an Apple TV. Down at the beer joint Friday, Saturday night there's a band in the corner and they're playing all night. This is spilling mugs, popping tops at the bar. The city folks don't show, they say it's too far. The sky is singing loud, the wood is just a humming. Unless it's last call, it's hard to disappoint down at the old beer joint. We've got bottles and cans and a bunch of kegs too. Domestics, IPAs, a hard to disappoint down at the old beer joint. Play one, boys. Oh, guitar. Now if you don't like beer, our back room's got you cooked. With a recipe I stole from my grandma's cook. Some call it corn liquor, some call it moonshine. You get yourself a snip and we'll have a good time. Down at the beer joint on Friday, Saturday night there's a band in the corner and they're playing all night. Mrs. Bill and Muggs popping tops at the bar. The city folks don't show, they say it's too far. Sky is singing loud and Woody's just a humming. Unless it's last call, it's hard to disappoint down at the old beer joint. Unless it's last call, it's hard to disappoint down at the old beer joint.
There you go, Mitch Gordon on the Mix Radio Network. This is The Grind from Field to Freezer, and it is with Seth. Hey, this is, I want to tell you, this is now a actual certifiable hit on the Mix Radio Network. The Grind, how did
I don't know how.
I don't
That's
either.
impossible.
I
I think we have like 3 listeners.
I think it's your beard.
Probably like my wife, my dad, and maybe one other person.
It's the beard.
It could be.
It is. It's the beard.
It could be.
You know,
Or the mullet.
right.
It's been a little out of control. Oh, speaking of, so anybody who's watching probably see like a huge gap in my sunburn from my face. I was fishing all weekend with my hat backwards.
Wow.
If you are on a boat, rotate your hat. Hot tip. Rotate your hat.
There you go.
So you'll have, otherwise you'll have permanent problems.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything. Golly, but I'm glad you did, because I
Yeah.
was wondering.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. No, anyways, this is a certifiable hit now. It
Well-
actually is. I mean, we got a ton of listeners, and it's going good. I think people are loving what you're doing, and they're just talking to a guy, listening to a guy. You're interactive, and they love it.
Look, I'm nobody special. I just have, I like to share what I know. I'm not one person who likes to keep things close to the vest, so I'll share anything. For example, like I just shared to the Field to Freezer page exactly how I caught all those walleyes. Like exactly how I caught all those walleyes. Where you try and talk to somebody else and they're just going to say, oh, you know, they're in the lake or whatever. Like, to me, that's bullshit. Like, come on, we're all out here trying to have fun. Like, let's help each other out. Now, one thing I do want to talk about with walleyes, if you do get to go to a lake where you actually get to keep a fish, I'll share the YouTube video on the Field to Freezer page. But they're called walleye wings. It's kind of like the belly to breast of the walleye. It's a huge chunk of meat that I would say north of 75% of fishermen's leave behind. So it's a delicious little appetizer that I like to cook up. My brother does it. My dad does it. I've been virtually telling everybody to pull walleye wings for the last like 5-6 years. So I'll share that as well. It's a nice little app, and the recipe's super simple. You just got to know where to cut on the fish. So I'll share that out, and hopefully anybody who's going out fishing this weekend that is lucky enough to boat a couple of walleyes, give it a shot. You know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But I think they're pretty good. And like my buddy Jeff just chimed in, those cheeks, man, the cheeks on a walleye, they're like tiny little delicious scallops. All I need is a little bit of butter and about 2 minutes on medium high, and they're delicious. So don't forget about that. So in the future, I'm going to. It's my 40th birthday in like 3 weeks, along with my twin brother Simon, obviously. But I'm going to Red Lake in a couple of weeks with some buddies. Hopefully, I have something to report. Sounds like fishing should be okay. I love that lake. It's a super easy lake to fish. It's basically a basin, so you can't go wrong. It's not like Mille Lacs where there's a ton of structure. That lake has been producing millions of pounds of walleyes. And they also have a really good relationship with the Red Lake band of natives up there. So if Red Lake can figure it out, I would hope that Mille Lacs would be able to figure it out, because they're shutting down Mille Lacs July 1st to July 31st, and I feel really bad for all those resort owners. You know, the 4th of July is just a great time of year for families to get out, and you know, you can't even have any fishing equipment on the lake, and that, to me, it's just sad. So hopefully you can get that figured out. I'll post the walleye wings to the page. I will give an update on Red Lake. I will do the Man Cave next Sunday, and then I'll be in studio the following Sunday. And we have some pretty good guests lined up. I got Dr. Duck coming up. We're going to talk about duck hunting and what to do to get in preparation. Geez, it's almost July 4th. Like, where's the summer gone? Where's 2020 gone? Like, seriously, exactly. Like,
COVID and rioting.
Fucking kill me now.
COVID and rioting.
Sorry for swearing, Jana.
Oh, yeah.
But it's gone by in a flash. So hunting season's coming around the corner. I know Wyoming just posted their elk lottery. Colorado's going to post their elk lottery in about a month, but you can buy over the counter starting like August 4th. So time to start thinking about that.
Jeez,
And
coming
so
up.
yeah, so if you didn't get drawn, start thinking about an over the counter situation. And I have options for that. I'll share them in the next coming weeks with Jana onto the page. So if you're looking for an over the counter do it yourself trip, hit us up. I'll share my failures. So hopefully you don't have to repeat them. And that's all I can tell you is I've failed a million times and I'm starting to figure it out. So I'm very happy to share my failures. I'm not perfect, and hopefully it makes you a better sportsman. On that, you know, I love Minneapolis. I love Minnesota. I love the police. I love all the victim families, and hopefully everything can calm down. Cooler heads can prevail, and we'll connect soon, family. In the meantime, get your boat out, get your family out, go fishing. Bars are open. Go have a drink, have some fun, and get outside. It's beautiful.
Can't say better than that. He's set. He is the host of The Grind, Field to Freezer on the Mixed Radio Network. Don't forget, Tuesday night, got to throw a shameless plug out for Queen the Cop, too.
Yeah,
Tuesday
you have
night,
to.
7 to 9. You know, they love listening and watching your show, so they're probably doing it right now as well. But 7 to 9, Stacy and Tracy will be in studio, and trust me, it'll be one hell of a bomb-dropping, opinionated
The
show.
fireworks are coming early, I think.
I think they are, and we don't hold back, you know that.
No, that's good.
But hey, thank you for what you do, and you know what? It's absolutely the best way to end the show. We're gonna get out of here with Leadfoot Larry, one of Jana's favorite guys, and mine too, Blue Eyed Baby on the Mixed Radio Network.
Thanks, brother.